Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. Hello, David Guthrie back with Discover Fresh Perspectives. And today I'm with Reva Nelson. Welcome, Reva.
Thank you. Good to see you, David.
So I was trying to think, Reva, the last time I saw you, and it had to be over 20 years ago. My daughter's 24. I'm sure it was before she was born. So wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would guess it's maybe even 30 years ago. But some good memories from the speaking world, that's for sure.
I'm not even that old. I'm not sure how that could be. Okay, so Reva, you said that you retired, and one of the things might be interesting to have a conversation about is what are the different ways that that life changes after retirement? What changes have you made, and what's it been like for you? So we can dive in anywhere along that spectrum.
Well, I would say it's been great. I did a lot that was spontaneous in that I was living in Toronto in the same house for about 30 years. I raised one son. And I was starting to think about where I want to live next. I had gone from a house to an apartment to see what that was like. I didn't like it. Looked around at some very tiny condos in Toronto and knew about Coburg. So moved east about an hour and a half from Toronto and have this huge 1,500 square foot condo with 3 bedrooms. And I can walk downtown we now have about 7 independent coffee shops. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's competing with the weed shops and barbers and hairdressers. But anyway, lots of places to get a coffee. But when I thought of moving here, the main thing was it's right on the lake, so I can walk to Lake Ontario, and there's a beach side and there's a more rough side with lots of pebbles and wild grasses and things. So that's beautiful. There's my bank was here. There's a library. There's a place that shows films, and like I said, these coffee shops. So an art gallery. So that pretty much. I didn't know anyone here, and I just moved here, and so did a lot of other people from Toronto. Kind of come here spontaneously. So I have this whole new network of friends who are very intelligent and had interesting careers, and it's been really cool.
So for me, I'd say that takes a lot of courage to go to someplace totally new and not know anyone. So how did you integrate yourself, if that's the right word, into the community?
Well, it is. But David, you probably don't recall, if you ever did know, that one of my topics when I was speaking was positive risk and change. So I did keynotes on risk taking. And it started because I'd been a teacher, but only for 1 year. And then I went into the theater world for 5 years. And then I went back to teaching for 4. Quit again, and everyone was like, how do you take those risks? They kept asking me, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm a chicken. So that was my foray into that topic, was from the viewpoint of being a chicken, and I still am, but I just do things. I'm highly intuitive, I would say, and my intuition led me here. So it just felt right. That's all I can say. And in terms of retiring, you don't really retire when you retire. I'm probably as busy as I ever was, except that I take naps in between activities now.
So what are some of the activities that you take part of in between your naps?
Well, the first thing was that I'd started, so in Toronto, I had my 2 books that went with my topics, one on risk and one on resilience, called Bounce Back, and they did extremely well. But you probably know, if you're out there speaking and they like you, they want your book. So that's an easy sell. When you are doing a different kind of book and in a small town and you're not in the speaking world, it's a tougher sell. Mm-hmm. So my 3rd book was totally different. It's called Hippie Chick Abroad, and that's about the year travel through Europe and what I learned on that year. And that's a lot of fun. And so that was just as I moved here, it came out. And then since I've been here, there's a very big poetry scene here that I joined. There was an open mic. So, of course, there's a microphone and I'm here. So that's what I did. And I started gathering some of my older poems and my new poems. And I wrote a poetry book during COVID. So that was a wonderful thing to be focused on during those 2 years of pretty much isolation. So That's one thing. The other was I went to an open house with the friend who I came here for lunch with a friend from Toronto. Initially, I just started coming to Coburg for lunch. And he was a real estate agent, and it was beyond him to come here and not line up some things for me to look at. So that's how I ended up here. And then he visited again, and there was an open house across the street, and he started talking to that realtor. And I overheard her say that she had moved here just a year ago, and she already was on like 4 different boards and part of this and part of that. So I just told her I've been here about 3 weeks and could we meet for a coffee and you can tell me about some of these groups. So it's that kind of thing where, and a small town, I mean, I run into people I've met all the time. Sometimes we don't know why we know each other and the face just looks familiar, but it's very easy to kind of get to know people. But yeah, you just join something. So one of the first things I joined was the art gallery. And I have what I consider to be one of the best volunteer jobs in the world. At a desk, people come in. Sometimes they're local, sometimes they're from all over the world, and or they're artists. And so I get to meet really interesting people, and I introduce them to the gallery, and I just sit at a desk once a week for half a day. And if there's nobody coming in, I read a book. So it's a great volunteer job.
Wow.
That's one of them. And then that led to me saying to the director at the time, there's no one promoting the gallery. There's no art column. And we had a paper. We don't have a paper now. But anyway, so I just went to the newspaper and said, I've done this writing and that writing, and I'd like to write about the different artists at the gallery and highlight it and have an arts column. And they said, okay. So things like that you can do in a small town really easily. You can get on any board you want to. People are happy to have you. And it's just fun and interesting.
So one of the things I'm interested in, you've certainly been you are a good model of going out and getting involved in the community. And that's the word I want to focus on because I grew up in Toronto as well. I spent the 45 formative years of my life there before I moved out west. And I never felt a sense of community where I was in Toronto. Knew a few people on either side of me and that was it. And out here in West Van, I know a few people on either side, but it doesn't, even though they talk about the West Vancouver community, it doesn't feel like a community. But the way you're describing it in Coburg sounds like something I crave, which is a sense of community. And maybe that's because you're involved in it all. But when you think about community, how do you experience that in Coburg?
Oh, the community here is really strong because it runs on volunteers. That's another committee I'm on. the civic, you, people would never believe it that I'm actually shy and an introvert. No one believes me when I say that because I don't act that way, but that is who I am by nature. Like I'm as likely to not go to a party or to go and pat the dog in the back bedroom and have a conversation with the dog and then go home. I mean, that it can be fun, but I also just love a good book and quiet downtime. However, with the Civic Awards, I liked the mayor. We have a different mayor now, but I liked that mayor, and I wanted to do something because I felt a bit like not all of my brain was being used. And so I just set up a meeting with the mayor and said, I can facilitate things. I can do this. I can do that. I can, I told him my background, gave him my resume, even though I wasn't applying for a job. And I said, so can you let me know if there's something to be on? And then a little while later, I got a call to be on this Civic Awards committee. So we encourage people to volunteer people for this award. It's quite prestigious and there's levels to it. And it honors the people who've been volunteering in the community all through the year. So we read all these submissions and you just get such a good, warm feeling. And then we have a meeting and select the ones who are getting an award. Like a father can't really nominate his son because he did one thing that has happened. And I can't say to anyone, why don't you nominate so-and-so? I have to kind of hint strongly. But, again, because of being in the arts community, I kind of know who's been doing a lot of work. We have a writers group, we have a poetry group, we have an artist group, we have a musicians group. So I kind of know what's going on. And that's been a wonderful uh, committee to be part of, and it's such a feel good thing to be doing. So that's an example. You just talk to people. I got on the historical board, not historical board, because the very first meeting I went to, I thought the president was really funny, and the vice president makes homemade cookies that she brings to the meeting. They really were short of someone on the board, and they needed two more members at large. So my hand went up, and then I was on that board. So in a small town, it's very easy. I'm not from Toronto, by the way. I was born and raised in Hamilton, but I left at 18 to Western. And then, but when I eventually, and then lived Niagara on the Lake and Guelph and London, all over the place in Western part of Ontario, but ended up here in the east part. But on my street in Toronto, in Midtown, I'd like to know where you were, but in Midtown at Bathurst and St. Clair area, we had old houses with front verandas. Remember front porches?
Sure do. Yep.
So when you sit out there and people go by with babies and dogs, you get to know, like our block was the friendliest block in town. We had a blast on our block, and everyone knew everyone. So I did have community in Toronto as well. That's a very long-winded answer to your question. You just have to talk to a lot of people, be friendly, smile. Harder when the masks were on. But ask questions, and if someone asks you to do something or help with something, just say yes, and you'll have 20 friends in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know that with an association I'm part of, Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, I've never volunteered for anything, but I've always said yes to anything I was asked of, right? Which made it really easy. But, you remind me of a colleague out here, Scott Armstrong, has a program called Retire on Fire. And his whole thing is about helping people to think about retirement before they retire. Mm-hmm. And had you planned to do all the things that you're doing now when you moved to Cobourg, or you kind of got to Cobourg and said, oh, okay, what am I going to do now? Because, you certainly have tons of energy, and I can't imagine just sitting around and just wasting away.
Oh, I love sitting around and wasting away and reading a book. But no, I didn't come here with a plan other than I had my Hippie Chick book to promote and get out and try to recoup my costs from. The poetry came about from going out to the poetry evenings. No, it kind of evolved. But, even when I was with CAPS and I was on the board of, what was it called? Ontario Speakers Association, and then Toronto chapter of CAPS, I was president of. It just seemed like, okay, I was like, a lot of the guys who came out of a sales background, some of the women just seemed like so rah, gung ho. And that was never my style. And so I used to do a session, like you say, volunteering for CAPS conferences and things like that, called organic marketing. And I think I'm probably doing organic retiring. It's just kind of out of my interests. I don't necessarily plan to be busy, but I am busy with naps in between.
Well, following your interest certainly sounds like a good way to go about it, because you're not forced into anything, and you can always stop if you're no longer interested or no longer having fun. Now, I'm curious about your book that you wrote, Hippie
Chick Abroad.
Yeah. What was that all about? That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Well, it is. So after university at Western, I had a really good summer job. I thought I wanted to be a social worker. And again, I got that job at the London Children's Aid because around February, way before anyone ever talked about the information interview, I just called up the director of the Children's Aid. I think I was 19 at the time, and said, I want to know about being a social worker. Can I come and talk to you? So the next thing I know, when they had a special program in the summer to get kids to a camp that was sponsored by Kiwanis, I got hired to, I was playing God, because I didn't like that part so much, but it was deciding who of the poor kids was most deserving to go. Because
okay, wow.
Bases, but at any rate, I worked at the Children's Aid that summer, made very good money, had a car to use because I had to get out to the camp. And then in September, I took a student charter out of New York that took 9 days to cross, which was fabulous. And hitchhiked with a girlfriend of mine from university, and eventually we split up and went our own ways. And I was determined to see the sculpture of the David in Italy because of having read the book about Michelangelo in grade 11. And it just all went from there. And then I worked on a kibbutz in Israel, and I worked as a secretary in London, England. I picked grapes in Bordeaux. I was in Turkey. I was in Greece. I mean, it was a time when if there were people with beards and tambourines, that was your tribe. Um, that wasn't hard to make friends in those years. So that's what the book is. It's Hippie Chick Abroad, and it's about, I'll tell you, the subtitle is Wild Energy Meets Sweet Naivete. So it's
Love
about
it.
the last year of the 60s, the 69, 70. And so now, I mean, it's got a little bit of sex in it. So now living in a small town, I'm a little embarrassed to buy it. But we have a waterfront festival here, and we have a book sale in the library. So I just tell people, were you a hippie or did you experience it? And a lot of people here got married at 18, right out of their parents' house into marriage. So they don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I said, well, if you missed it, this book will tell you what you missed. And if you didn't miss it, you can relive it. And that's how I sell my books. So, but I think I like this quote. Even if the 60s weren't your decade, you will still enjoy embarking on the journey with this book. So it's really about those years. And it's great fun. But I mentioned the Vietnam War and meeting a soldier, and his reading me his letter from his friend in Vietnam, and him crying because he didn't think his friend was going to make it. And I've tried to find that person since. And of course, it's not like Canada where you can call up and say, I'm looking for this person from the army, and there's 10 people to choose from.
Right.
Try to trace a person in the States. It's like, well, we have millions of ex-soldiers here. I don't think you're going to find this person. So I haven't. But I always wondered if he made it, if his friend made it, and if he got sent there, I don't know. And then my other book is Twisted Branches, which is a quote on the cover of this book is the beauty of a bared soul, which I quite like. And it's about life being twisted. It doesn't go in a straight line.
This is your book of poetry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's what I've done since I've been here as well. And now I work for a magazine. So it's the writing, the writing has come forward for me more than I expected. And lately I've been doing some physical exercises. Another interesting thing is I got onto a study that's being done with Baycrest, a hospital in Toronto that's a leader in aging.
Yeah.
And the University of Waterloo. And it's to find out if this program they've developed on whether exercise and work on brain exercises and learning about memory helps with cognition, if that program can be successful when it's delivered online and not in person. So that's exercising together in a group on Zoom, and like you have to turn up, and it's quite a commitment from September to April. And that's twice a week.
So I'm just trying to picture the length, given all the things you've described that you're doing and the 2 books and all the boards you're on and things like that, and trying to picture the length of naps that you have. And they feel like they might be like 7 minutes.
No, they're 10 to 15 minutes of recommended. But I come from a family of nappers, and that's what we used to do. Like everybody in my family could just nod off for 10 or 15 minutes.
Wow.
And that's actually what's recommended in a lot of books on healthy aging. So, it's very rejuvenating. But, I mean, I'm watching movies on TV because I was in theater, not that I was any famous actor, but I'm fascinated by good acting and good scripts. So I'm not just watching a film, I'm really looking at it and marveling at how someone put this together.
So this may be a bit of a divergence in our conversation, but if you were to consider the terms happiness or fulfillment, what comes to mind? Like if those were on scales, where would you say you are? Because you're certainly busy.
I think they they totally go together.
Mhm.
Mm. When I was in the speaking business, I had a lot of vision and purpose, and I was teaching a lot of vision and purpose. Um, risk for what is important to you, and it was risk within the company too. Like speak up if you don't like something, try to make a change without being fired. That kind of thing. And then resilience was, a lot of different topics tied up into resilience, which at the time was not a buzzword. I was a little bit ahead again because of my intuition, I think. So it involves stress and handling stress and a sense of humor and allowing yourself downtime when you need it. I can't even think of all the different things. And then eventually I was at CIBC at the Leadership Center. So we were really talking of being leaders. And a lot of all of those things, I think, tie together with initiative, taking the initiative for things that interest you, taking the initiative to try to change things. I think you have to contribute to your where you're living in some way or another. I mean, even when my son was in daycare, I was on the daycare board. Um, I think it's important to contribute, but I think happiness is a myth.
Hmm.
For quite a while, it seemed like there was, the pursuit of happiness and trying to be happy. I don't think that's really anything important. I'd say um, when you find things that interest you and are important to you, when you try to share what you know and help how you can, um, then you do feel content. I'd say it's more contentment, but not like sitting on a rocking chair and just being there all day. But um, and when you're retired too, you have the time to be kinder. Like I mentioned before we started this, I have a couple of friends who are over 90. They're brilliant women and they've had amazing lives and they're very funny and very smart. So it's not like I'm doing just a good deed out of the kindness of my heart. I enjoy them and they're inspirational to me because this one woman today, she said, I think I might be down to my last marble. You know, she, she is a bright, bright lady at 88 and, it's frustrating for her because she doesn't hear well. So to me, it was important to visit her. I hadn't seen her in quite a while. And I think that, you can be kind when you're retired. There's more time and space for that. My kids live 4 hours away, in sound, so I don't see them as much as I'd like to. But it also means I'm not babysitting every day, and I have to have my own life too, and I want them to feel like I'm happy with my life. I don't want them to have to be worrying about me.
So two things occur to me. And one is I've heard some from friends that happiness is not something pursue. It's an outcome of doing things that you love to do.
Definitely.
Right. And the second thing I forgot.
See, and that's important because we're all forgetting stuff. And you just have to laugh about it. And, it takes four people to make a sentence. Like, if someone's talking about frying eggs and someone says, that thing that you flip the eggs with, what's that called? And someone else says spatula and nobody's fussed about it. You can't get fussed with this stuff because we've all got some body part not working or replaced or painting. So that you just, some of these things are distractions as well, because otherwise you're sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself. And that's not good.
Well, one thing they said I want to come back to for a second is you say when you're retired, it's easier to be kind. And I wonder, like, does it take more time to be kind? Is that something that people could have done before they got retired if they chose to? Or does it really take more time?
Well, it takes more time if you're going to go visit somebody.
Yes.
No, you can be kind all the way through. I mean, success always comes from someone else and from, people like, for example, some people will remember Peter Bender. It was quite a character. He was, I think,
Yes. Yeah.
originally, right? So he was one of the first to self-publish his book. And he told me about, he had a red and white cover that, was just a red and white cover. And when he took it into world's biggest bookstore, which used to be in Toronto, huge bookstore, the guy pulled down a whole bunch of presentation skills books and they were very nice looking. And he said, why would anyone choose yours? Which was pretty blunt. But Peter shared that story with me when I was thinking of self-publishing because and no one did at the time. He was, there were only a few of us, like 3 or 4. And he said, put your money on the cover. And I did $1,000 back then to have my risk it book have a good cover. I met David Chilton when he wasn't famous, but
Yep.
we were up in Thunder Bay together and he had just self-published The Wealthy Barber. That's how he started. It was not a big deal. And I told him about my idea for my risk-taking book and that people were wanting it after I spoke. They're like, where's the book? And he's like, you've got to do it. So that was at the very beginnings for all of us. And everyone had advice, some good, some bad, but a lot of people took the time to be helpful. And it was kind of a thing to invite someone you wanted to know something from, be honest about it, take them to lunch, whether you had the money or not in those days. And just say, it's like, could I have lunch with you? And can I ask you some questions? And this is before we had all the conferences too, right? And so people did that and then you pass it on. And that was being kind. I mean, I had a lot of people were kind. I had some criticizers too, but in the end they turned around and were supportive of me. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know what being a keynote speaker was. I just knew how to lead seminars.
Well, you reminded me of some stories about Peter Bender where he would take his books into the airport bookstores and just put them on the shelf, right?
Yes.
Which is
That's the other thing we have here. We have a store here, and I did that the other day. My poetry book was in the shelf, and I took them out and put them face out. I think every author knows to do that. You take your books and put them face out.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
support each other here too. Like we have quite an association of authors, and you share a table at the Waterfront Festival or at the library. We just had a featuring local authors sale, and so we were promoting each other at the table. If someone wasn't interested in your book, you'd say, "Oh, do you know my friend here? And this book is about." And we do a lot of promoting each other. But I think, do you know this name, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist?
yes. Yep.
So he had many quotes, but one of the things he said that I used to have in my fridge for a long time is, "My religion is kindness." I just really like that. We don't need any other, well, not to insult anyone who is religious, but I think at the core, whether you're religious or not, if you make that your religion, just try to be kind. And it's not that easy every single moment to every single person, but for the most part, it's important to do it in business as well. And you can do it more once you're retired. So there's the long answer to your short question.
Well, I mean, part of my belief is that if we could replace the emotions of fear and greed with kindness, how much different our world would be.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Be amazing. So Reva, I find this quite inspiring. My fear is when people listen to this, that it's going to drive up the cost of real estate in Cobourg because everyone's going to want to move there.
Yes. Well, we have a lot of Toronto people moving here because the dollar goes further here. And in fact, I'm in a former school that's been converted to condos. So they're big and high ceilings and they're wonderful. And my friend's friend came to see it and she moved in here. And I'm always trying to get people to move out here. If they have grandchildren in Toronto, they're not going to move here. But there are a lot of people from Toronto moving here. We tend to find each other. So there's former architects and engineers, and I've met some young couples too. That's really important that we get some young couples with babies moving here because we have a train that goes right to Toronto, so that the rail goes through here. And it's a great place to live. If you can't afford Vancouver, you should come here.
Well, okay, I'm thinking about that, but I think the notion of being like it sounds like you are a member of a number of communities in a community, and that part just warms my heart. And I would also imagine that once people touch that, they miss it if it's not there anymore. It's just there's something about it that's kind of part of our nature.
Yeah,
I
there is another factor, and this might not be a popular statement with some people, but I feel it's true. So I've been single I was married for 12 years at one point, and then uh, very late, like just before I moved here, actually, I finally met someone who was the right person for me, and sadly, his cancer came back. He passed away.
oh
My first year here, I sat on a log and raised the volume of the water in the lake. It was very rough, but um, I think there's a difference in sometimes with people who are if they're in a couple, they tend to do a lot with each other. So there's a lot of couples who you're still doing a lot separately, but there's a lot of couples who are very involved and on the boards and doing a lot to help the community. But if you have someone to do things with all the time, I think you're not as actively searching for activities and people to be involved with and committees to be on and things like that. Um, I know my 91-year-old friend, she's an artist, and her husband, who passed away, was a writer. And she said they were always together, always. And I've got a big family too, but they're always together. They were even in real estate together. Um, and when he passed away, she said that she just decided she was going to say yes to whatever someone asked if she wanted to do. Like, do you want to go to the mall? Do you want to go to a movie? Do you want to go hear this music? Whatever. And she said, I made up my mind I would say yes.
mhm.
Said, my life is totally different now. I mean, she misses her husband and she misses that life, but she has a great life now. She has tons of friends. And she said it's just, well, she's slowed down now at 91, but she said, she was part of the art group, and she went to an art club, and she went to films. She went out for lunch. Like, she did a lot, and continued to be busy in a different way. And I think that does make a difference. And, we are at an age when even when people are in a couple, one or the other is going to die before you. And I think that makes a difference too, where you actively look to be involved with groups and to contribute in some way, because otherwise it's very easy to get depressed if you don't work at not being depressed.
So just so our listeners don't misunderstand, Reva is not recommending that you dump your spouse if you want to have more a fully engaged life. So just to be clear, no, and there's always someone's going to misinterpret that, and that's not what Reva is just saying at all. So, Reva, thank you so much. As I said, I found this inspiring, and I'm looking forward to retirement. I've been telling my clients that they can count on me till 2040, but after that, they're going to have to book ahead. But thank you so much for your time.
You won't retire, really. I mean, you might not be charging for what you do, but you like people and you like talking to people. So you'll probably be even more busy than I am doing more stuff. And it feels good to do it for free. I know you like getting the money now, but it does feel nice to do it for free.
Well, this podcast is for free, and I love doing this. So that's a really
I'm not
good
getting
example.
paid. You're not sending checks not in the mail.
I'll give you
20. It's good.
I'll give you 20% of what I'm making off of this, and don't be waiting by the mailbox. So today I've been here with Reva Nelson, talking a little bit about post-retirement and how you can be as busy or busier as you want to be. So thank you, Reva. And this has been David Guthrow of Discover Fresh Perspectives. Can't wait until our next episode. Thank you for listening. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.